but then you see, you know, the schools closing and, you know, the Save Our Library signs, and then you decide to get involved, and that's what I did. But you hear back in the day, back when things were good, the reason why they were good is because we were, I guess, double charging sewer users. And that wasn't, I guess it was technically legal, but not, you know, ethical, because you were, you know, charging a subgroup of people to pay for the rest of the town. And, you know, that there was a discussion about that, and we got rid of that. But there's been, that was a source of revenue that has not been replaced. So that's why we're in the bind we're in, or a good reason why we're in the bind we're in. And whenever I hear people, you know, oppose the, you know, any sort of override and such, I don't hear any other solutions. I'd love to hear other ideas, but this is the one, this is the last resort. And I've said before, I mean, I don't like taxes as much as anyone. I can't believe I'm saying it. I can't believe these words are coming out of my mouth, that I want to, you know, raise my taxes. I mean, thank God it's only $20 a year, but I do support it. But I only have 10 seconds, but I didn't get to the second part of this question about the override. Okay. All right.
Just FYI, voters, I have some of my answers of anticipated questions written down. There's a lot of important information that I don't want to exclude, so that's my reason for it. I'm against an override or a debt exclusion 100%. Until we have responsible administration in place, I do not believe the subject should even come up. When the superintendent proposed the article for town meeting to the Board of Selectmen on Tuesday night, I cut onto a key word in the article. Although it seems it is for the purchase of buses, the word used by Dr. Rabinovich is vehicles. That would lead one to understanding it's not necessarily going to be used for buses. Also, Dr. Rabinovich and certain school committee members can't seem to remember what they're asking us for, because it just keeps going back and forth every meeting. I don't feel that at this point in time, outside of the warrant article, which he read as debt exclusion the other night, based on what's reported on the papers and what we hear, I just don't think it's clear on which exactly they're looking for, and both are very different. Now, I want to respond to something else that was mentioned. In regard to reduction in funds in the school, in the year 2001, our schools were funded by the town of Wareham at $19.3 million. The projected fiscal year is $27 million. That's fiscal year 2013. Now, the cherry sheet education in Wareham, which is a lot of our grant money, for fiscal year 2005, $12.3 million, 06, $11.2 million, 07, $11.7, 08, $12.0, 09, $12.6, 2010, $12.5, 2011, $12.4. These are from the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education, which is reported by our school system. So that kind of doesn't jive. And I've got this nifty little chart here. The blue represents our student population since 2001 to the present, the last fiscal year ending 2011. And the budget, it goes up. So we're losing students, we're losing teachers, and we're spending a heck of a lot more money. And that just doesn't jive as far as our funding goes. One of the mentions in regard to this was by one of the candidates is a creative way to get back what was lost. Well, it was lost because we don't have it. We didn't have it then, and we don't have it now. Our quality of education, I've actually got another graph in here that shows you that we're much higher than the state average in terms of our teachers and funding.
Okay. Do we have another question? Good evening. Good evening. My name is Jane Donahue. The question that I have for the candidates is, do you recall an agreement between the town and the school department that was made last year prior to town meeting? I recall it very well because I stood up on town meeting floor and I spoke out in favor of it. It was an agreement that the school department would get another $1 million and the town would get $500,000 because of a holiday in the insurance premium trust fund. And along with that agreement to put the budget up for the school department and for the town was also an agreement that the school department would look at cutting their budget back. their operational budget back in the next year. So how do you feel about the fact that that agreement is obviously now being circumvented, and why is it being circumvented? Thank you.
Hi, sorry, I'm not really that familiar with that agreement, so I really couldn't really speak to it. I wasn't on the committee. And I just decided to run for the school committee a few months ago.
You're right. Thank you. Okay. I do recall the agreement. I was at town meeting. And I would have to say one of the key phrases that the question asker used, excuse me, is part of the agreement was based on the school cutting back. The schools haven't cut back. As I mentioned earlier, I believe that we're over budget every year and overspending. So I think placing that money into the hands should be closely watched, and if not, I am wary of it transferring over. Thank you.
I am aware of a proposed agreement that involved that, what you describe. I didn't agree with it at the time. I never signed on to it. And if I had done so, I think I would have been failing in my fiduciary responsibility to the parents and children of this town. And I'm not even sure it would have been legal for me to have signed it, because I have an independent responsibility as an elected official to the citizens of this town, and I don't think I could even enter into that agreement if I had wanted to. However, I didn't enter into it, didn't want to enter into it, never would enter into it, and given the fact that we are short dollars to properly educate this town, and it is now difficult to get as high a quality education in this town as other more affluent towns, it is an agreement I would never enter into. Never enter into.
My name is Dorothy Heath, and seeing as two of you are going to be new to the school committee and one of you has already been elected, I'm going to phrase my question a little differently for the two that are new and the one that's already elected. For the two that are new, how many are trying to newly elect?
Your question is directed to the office, so we don't know.
Okay.
who.
As being school committee members, could you tell me, as looking to be school committee members, could you tell me how many school committee meetings you attended in the past year, and whether or not you attended the full day budget meeting for the school committee?
Let me think about that for a second. On one level, that's an unfair question because you have a committee member who would have been at meetings. Yeah, no, and when... All right, I'll allow it that way. Lynn, you start. If you were able to attend any of the meetings and the budget meeting.
In the last year, I was down this year. I attended 4 school committee meetings. I did not attend the full-day budget meeting. There was a family commitment, which was a full-day family commitment, so I couldn't make that. And although I haven't watched it, I have to admit it is available for me to watch, and I will make sure that I do. That being said, I've been looking at numbers and requesting numbers, so I'm familiar with the material that they are discussing. I want to say that in terms of school meetings, I'm on the school policy committee, and I've also served up until very recently, and would still be active, or am still active in the background for the John W. Deacus fundraising committee. And I'm also the president of the WCPAC, so although I'm not at every single school committee meeting, I am very involved in the schools and familiar with what's going on. And chances are, in my history of attending local meetings, town meeting and Board of Selectmen meetings, you'll never have to worry about my missing a school committee meeting. Thank you.
Thank you for the question. As I mentioned, I've only decided to run for school committee in the past 3 months. And in that 3 months, I've been to at least 4 school committee meetings. I've been to 3 of the 4 Transportation Action Committee meetings. The superintendent and principals have been remarkably accessible. I've been on the phone to them often during the week, trying to immerse myself in school committee matters. I did not attend the all-day long budget meeting, but I did get the DVDs from like I said, they've been really accessible. They gave me the DVDs right from the office. I copied them. I actually wanted the ones from last year, because I did watch that. I watched it on the TV, but I didn't record them. So I wanted the ones from last year, but they didn't go back that far. They got back to like August or something, so they didn't have those. So just a little background. I am presently the chair of the Wareham Library Board of Trustees, and my term is up in June. And I've already immersed myself as much as I'm immersing myself as much as I can to get up to speed with a lot of things. But I'm not going to go for reappointment on the trustees, because it's an elected position. I don't think it's right for me to be on 2 boards. So I'm going to focus entirely on school committee matters. I hope that answers your question.
To the best of my knowledge, in 6 years on the school committee, I don't think I've missed a meeting, but I'm sure my colleagues here in the room will correct me if I'm wrong. And I have been in the hair, so to speak, of the superintendent with regard to the budget process since the beginning of December, and I have made every budget meeting that has existed, because, as my colleagues know, I'm a numbers person, and use them to inform myself so that I can inform you.
There was somebody over here first. Brenda? Who had their hand raised over there? No, there was somebody before Brenda. Change your mind? Okay. All right, then Brenda.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay. I'll do it. One of the things that was said by one of the candidates in their opening comments was that the Deacus School has lost 7 teachers. My children go to Minot Forest School, and one thing that I take a bit of exception to is that it seems to be that we're trying to get more training for teachers. We're trying to, help the teachers along. We're trying to do. The thing is what I have found, we have phenomenal teachers in the elementary, that from where I can speak. Phenomenal teachers in the elementary. The problem is, in my opinion, is that you have middle management, created positions. So what I'd like to know is, do you, as candidates, know for every teaching position that we've lost, how many interventionists, middle management, coordinators, directors have we increased on the in the budget? And what is where do our teachers stand as far as being educated, being knowledgeable? Because okay, so you want to start with that? Okay, thank you.
I believe we start with, okay, so the first, who was first? Okay, so, right? No, Lynn was first.
I'd like to hear the question again, not the whole thing. No, it was,
The question was.
Thank you.
We have lost educators,
mhm.
but teachers, well, that's educators. Oh, all right, however you're defining it. We have lost teachers, but we have, it is believed, increased middle management. And does anyone know whether or not that is accurate?
Yeah. Oh, I meant yes as in acknowledging to the person who asked the question. Based on the fiscal year, the annual report of the town ending fiscal year 2011, from what I can see, and just looking at the school system, I believe that we've probably doubled administration. When our current school superintendent came in, he stated that he was going to reduce it, and it's at least doubled. As far as middle management goes, you know, right now, folks, and you better show up for town meeting. We've got 4 interventionists that were hired last year. These are the ones who are overseeing teachers and helping children out in the classroom and evaluating teachers. 4 part-time interventionists, and you are paying $75,000 for each one, okay? In the projected school budget, they want that to go full-time, $600,000, okay, for 4 people. That's just my average. If there's 75,000 part-time, I'm guessing, you know, it's going to be up over $500,000 full-time. And there's the money for your debt exclusion, folks. Let the teachers teach.
Just off that last point, I mean, that was the point of my opening statement. Yeah, we do need more teachers, and they are doing a phenomenal job with being really overburdened and still doing a phenomenal job, all things considered. I couldn't tell you about the proportions on, you know, with the teachers that we've lost, and, you know, in relation to administration. I couldn't tell you that. But to it's interesting you bring up the interventionists. I remember when that was first proposed, and I spoke to it, you know, to our principal, and I learned a bit about it at the time. Again, not interested in being a school committee member, just a parent, and it sounded like the right thing to do. But then I watched the budget meeting, and I don't know if you saw it, but the principal at the Deacon school. She had, you know, they all get up and they say why they need a certain amount of funds at their school, and what she was saying is the way the response to intervention is supposed to work. It's one-on-one, 1-on-2 maybe. You know, if kids need instruction, that those kids, you know, they pull them aside, and it's one-on-one instruction to get them up to, you know, where they need to understand, so the teacher can do her job and such. And she said, that's 1-on-1, 1-on-2 at the most that should happen. And she said, you know, once you hit, you know, 1-on-3, it's really not effective. She said at that meeting that it's 1-on-5, you know, and they're doing what they can. And so I'm concerned about that. And what I'm concerned about is, I mean, you know, it was sold to us one way, but it's implemented another way. And I think that needs to be revisited, you know. I mean, I'm concerned about that. Did that answer your question?
10 seconds.
It's impossible to talk about this subject in 2 minutes. So I will give you the Reader's Digest condensed. When I got here, when I was first on the school committee, I was all about merit pay. I found that the evaluation of our teachers was so flawed that it was impossible to impose merit pay because no one knew what they were doing in the classroom. And the principals admitted that to me. They didn't. They couldn't. Why? Because, for example, in the Minot Forest School, where the principal at the time was responsible not only for Minot Forest, but Hammond and also East Wareham at the time, this individual was responsible for supervising 70, that's 70 teachers, and doing the evaluations of 70 teachers. It is physically impossible to do a good job. Imagine if we've all been an employee with a boss, right? Imagine if you were one of 70 and they saw you maybe twice a year for a class of 40 minutes. It's just not possible. If you want the scores to go up, as I desperately do, if you want instruction to be better, if you want people to be able to implement new programs, new curriculum, do important things for our children, they have got to be well supervised and well supported, and of course, in small occasions, held accountable. It cannot be done with ratios of 1 to 70 for supervision. Don't vote for me if you want that kind of ratio. Don't. Our department heads in the high school, for the first time, are held accountable for the quality of the instruction in their for their teachers in their department. They know it's the right thing. They want it, especially with the new evaluation process. If you ask the teachers whether they want to be evaluated by instructional leaders who see them routinely, all the time, every day, they will say yes. Do they want to be evaluated by the principal who sees them twice a year? No. I'm passionate about this. I think you can tell. I'm sorry.
Okay, you had a second.
Second part was just where do our teachers rank as far as being qualified? Because we always hear about how we're at state minimum or we're below state average in funding. I'm wondering if teachers, classes, things like that.
Okay. The question is, okay, you guys heard the question. Somebody want to repeat the question? Basically, it's asking a question about the quality of our teachers. Where do they stand as compared to ratio of students per teacher, that type of thing? Okay,
I couldn't tell you what their credentials are and what have you, but I can tell you that the ratio is one of my biggest concerns, always has been. We're looking at, depending on if these debt exclusions don't go, do or don't go, you're looking at, upwards of 30 kids per teacher in the high school. I'm told ideally you want to be at 22, at the low 20s. That's all I can really say to that, really. That's a huge concern of mine. I couldn't really speak to knowing about their credentials, but as you and I just said earlier, I mean, we both agree that they do a great job, and with what they have, especially. Sorry, I couldn't offer more.
The question's a little ambiguous. I can tell you that virtually 100%, there's probably, it's like 98-point-something% of our teachers are considered highly qualified. That's an official term that the state uses to judge how well we're doing in hiring and teachers, of course, obtaining masters at an appropriate amount. I believe they have to obtain a master's in 5 years and things like that. So the short answer is virtually 100%, 98-point-something% of our staff are highly qualified. Does that answer your question? Thank you.
According to the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education current figures, which would be through, once again, fiscal year 2011, the percentage of teachers licensed in their specific teaching assignment in Wareham is 99.2%, and in the state is 97.5%. The percentage of core academic classes taught by teachers who are considered to be highly qualified, that's their classification, in Wareham, 99.7% of our teachers are highly qualified as compared to the state's figure of 97.7%. The student-teacher ratio, according to DESE, now this figure involves smaller schools that we have, the co-op and the West Wareham Academy too, so it does influence the number. By experience, I'll tell you that classes at the high school generally have 15 to 20 kids in them, based on what I've seen. But the student-teacher ratio, according to the DESE figures, is 12.8 to 1%, to 1 rather, in Wareham, and the state average is 13 to 9.1. So we do have excellent numbers, we're above everybody. However, when you look at our MCAS scores, they continue to go down along with your student population while the funding increases each year since 2011.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, any more questions? Over there, Mark.
Good evening, my name is Frank Hughes. Good evening, my name is Frank Hughes. I would like to know what your understanding is of the non-financial duties and responsibilities. Because all we talk so far is money, which usually occupies only 30 minutes of the school committee meeting. So I'd like to know what your understanding of the non-financial duties and responsibilities of the school committee members are.
The non-financial
The
responsibility?
non-financial, right, how you
Okay.
understand what your responsibilities are other than money.
By law, the school committee is responsible for the budget, the policies as compared to procedures, the policies of the schools, and the hiring and firing of the superintendent. I can tell you that a school committee member who only focuses on the budget misses the big picture, because it's what our kids get out of our education, whether they become productive and independent adults, is what it's all about. Which is why the school committee a couple of years ago asked the superintendent to set up a database so we could track kids after they graduate, hopefully from college. So 5 years out, how are they doing? Because we want to know how well we're doing in that respect. I can also tell you, with respect to the hiring and firing of a superintendent, I participated on a statewide task force, because not only are the teachers going to be evaluated under a new set of regulations, every administrator, including the superintendent, is included in those new regulations. So the task force was designed to change, hopefully improve, but bring the process of evaluating a superintendent into line with the new regulations. I think the committee has done a good job. We recently had a Saturday morning workshop meeting open to the public to start the process of bringing that process. We are considered a high-functioning board by the Association of School Committees, and I believe the overall responsibilities of the school committee members is almost always larger than the law defines, because if you really want to have an impact, you have to get to know not only the superintendent, but at least one or two levels below the superintendent in the organization, and perhaps even a few teachers and students on the way, which is why I love coaching. So I think it's a lot more than the budget. Unfortunately, the budget occupies so much of our time because of the shortage of resources.
In terms of non-financial issues on the school committee, areas where I would like to improve on and where I feel I can contribute greatly. We have subcommittees, just like selectmen, that we're expected to serve on. One of the big things I think in town is to respond to citizens and students and the lower level staff in the schools, and being willing to listen and hear, and for them to be comfortable coming forward to discuss important issues regardless of whether they're financial or not. Serving on the policy committee, obviously policy is important. That's something that's done at every single school committee meeting usually. We meet once a month on the policy committee and we submit our requests, and every 1 to 2 months it's coming before the school committee. Things that I mentioned, things that I would like to dive into, one of them being school libraries. There's been grant money, or rather not grant money, I'm sorry, donations received from private citizens that go to our school libraries. However, we don't have library services at our schools. I'd like to see more arts and intramurals for students and the kinds of things that keep them in there, and to find the resources to do so. And I'd like to see that in K through 12. And the kids that, excellent job, you know, to our basketball team, our volleyball team this year also. Good job, girls. And where was I going with that? Forgive me. I'd like to see intramurals and sports in the schools for the kids who aren't, you know, of that caliber. You know, just give them a reason to stay in school for the day. Some of them don't have a reason, and in speaking with kids who have gone through our system, that's one of the things that's been mentioned to me by students who are in their 20s now. Thank you.
Thanks. It's a really good question, actually. Besides obviously hiring and firing the superintendent, also deciding whether or not to give him a bonus. Just being involved in day-to-day, you know, not day-to-day, but you know, the concerns that come up, you know, in the schools, you know, the metrics. You know, if I just mentioned, you know, if you learn that, you know, something like response to intervention is supposed to be 1-on-1, 1-on-2, and it's 1-on-5, then it's the school committee's job to, you know, look into that and see what's going on, and is it worth it? Actually, it's interesting, I learned the other day that the school committee is the ones that decide whether or not the school is going to offer school choice, you know, and allow other kids from other, you know, towns to come to it. Getting into, as Lynn had mentioned, you know, stuff I'd like to see, you know, done beyond, you know, the finances and numbers. If you watched some of these school committee meetings, you know, it's like anything else. I mean, you have a day job, you're working, you know, you'd love to get more involved in school committee things because your kid's in school, but a lot of it, you know, when you first start getting into it, goes over your head. So, I mean, there was a really good suggestion by Rhonda Vugan. I noticed at one of the meetings where she offered, you know, she mentioned it would be a great idea to have sort of like a parent's guide to X. You know, for example, you know, it was during the budget stuff, where about the budgets get so complicated, but it would be great to boil it down and have a pamphlet to give to parents so they'd understand it. But I think that would be doable for so much more than just budget stuff. I mean, you know, it would be great to have that sort of information to give to parents and have the school committee offer it. And I'd love to champion something like that.
Thank you. Martha,
I'm Joyce Silverman, and I've not had children in this school district because my kids were all out of school by the time I moved here 14 years ago. However, I have a son who is retiring this year from his teaching job in the western part of the state. And I know one of the actual thing that made him at age 58, with 32 years of teaching, retire was the morale that exists in his school system, particularly with him, as this is the major place that he has been, because of the kind of overkill of what is expected of the teachers. He works a 7-day week, not just for his classroom, but for the reports that have to go back. What is happening with the morale in our school system?
Have the two of you had an opportunity to be involved with some of the teachers so that you would have answers to that question? Okay, all right. I will allow that question because they are comfortable answering it. Who starts? I think you do, Mike. If you don't, you do.
Okay. I'll try. I'm new to this. I haven't run for anything before. They're just very concerned, and that's why I'm here. One of the things I mean, obviously, one of the biggest points I'm making is that our teachers are overwhelmed. You know, we do need more of them, not less. Real full-time, teachers. One of the things I found so interesting in listening to, watching some of the school committee meetings is this notion that, like, especially with the high school, when the principal gets up there and says, geez, if things keep up, I'm going to have to go back to study periods. I mean, we need more teachers, or we're going to have study periods. And I thought that was so weird because, like what's so bad about study periods? And come to find out, the emphasis now is always, that the kids got to be learning all periods. They can't even have study periods anymore. And, teachers have to teach those classes, so even the teachers don't get a break. So I found that interesting, and it just seemed to be accepted. Like we gotta, if these kids are in study periods, they're not learning. We gotta do something. So that's not how I grew up. I mean, you had study periods, and when you had the study period, the teacher, had time to correct papers and update things and do his or her work too. So it does seem like they are, not 24/7, but for the whole school day, just straight out, and that's not good in any profession.
I've spoken with several teachers over the last several years, and I can honestly say that I believe that not only is there a decrease in teacher morale, but I would have to say that I've witnessed it in conversing with teachers. I think that honest and transparent leadership that supports them, increasing lower level support staff, thereby releasing the heavy burdens on teachers, opening the door for communication with leadership. For example, in my several years of going to school committee meetings, PTA meetings, and other school meetings, you don't see teachers there. And I think that's sad. I want the teachers to come forth. I want them to be comfortable voicing their opinions, whether they are in a line with governing authorities or not. They shouldn't feel threatened by that. I think that we need to let our teachers teach to get their morale up. So let's do that.
You cannot pick up a newspaper in this country, national, statewide, citywide, not so much the town, without having educators and public education attacked. So if you're a part of that profession, that's not great for morale. You're constantly on the defensive. You go to a cocktail party, you go to have dinner with someone, you say, what do you do for a living? I'm a teacher. You say it almost like you have to apologize for it because, after all, you're spending too much money, the results aren't good enough, et cetera, et cetera. Is that a reason for bad morale? Sure, absolutely. It's also, in my opinion, one of the most isolated professions in the world. You get educated, you walk into a classroom, the principal says hi before you walk into the classroom, good luck, and then you have 20, 25, maybe 30 kids. That's your entire day. Maybe you walk into the staff room briefly, where you hear a lot of teachers unhappy for a variety of reasons, and then you go back to your class. And then maybe twice a year, you get your principal coming into your building, into your classroom, and you have what they call their gotcha moments, or at least they're scared to death of it being a gotcha moment, because their entire year is predicated on how well they do in those 2 visits. They happen to have a migraine. They came in sick, whatever. It's a terribly isolated, difficult profession, and then we go around criticizing it every day, and most of us know nothing about it. So, yeah, morale is really tough, which is exactly why I wanted to get them more lower-level support with these instructional leaders so they don't feel so alone. And so at the end of their first or second year, they don't want to quit, because these are the core of the future of our educators. And we can't have them quitting after 2 or 3 years because they're not well supported.
Okay, in the back. I don't know, who started first here? Did anybody?
Matt? Martha Strawn, 3rd Precinct. I would like to get a personal opinion of the candidates as to their concept of where MCAS comes into the picture. Do they personally believe that one test should determine a high school diploma?
Good question. Okay, who's starting? I think, Mike, you're starting, aren't you? Who's, okay, then Lynn's starting. Thank you.
I don't watch me anymore.
All right, did everybody hear the question? No? The question is about MCAS, personal opinions about MCAS, and whether or not they feel that one test defines whether or not our children should receive a diploma. And Lynn is going to start.
And I would have to answer that with, I absolutely believe that it's wrong to base it on one test. Last week at the night school at the high school was the MCAS testing for 11th and 12th graders who haven't passed. That's high anxiety, especially to be a senior and be under that kind of pressure. And then in not passing, to have to wait, and sit through all of next year to perhaps have to take it again if you want any chance of graduating. When MCAS was brought in initially, the idea was good. The state wanted a way to measure student progress, to see where our students are at across the state from one town to the next, which kind of allows us to analyze funding and how that relates to student testing. And also to hold those who are teaching the kids and those who are administrating our schools to more accountability. So the idea isn't bad. And if MCAS goes out the door, which there is some talk about that, there'll be something else that comes in, all of us sitting in this room. If we graduated high school, there was plenty of tests that we took, including PSATs. So should so much depend on it? Absolutely not. There are children who will take the information that they learned in school and go to into technical and more professional jobs, whether it be doctors or politicians, or, arts and sports and music and just this mechanics, there's just so much out there. And for them to start off their lives outside of school with that kind of failure is unfortunate.
I tend to agree. I don't think that MCAS should be used as a sole test to decide whether or not someone graduates, but I think the metrics it provides is important. I think we should still do MCAS testing. It's probably not really relevant to, it's a state, it would be more of a better question, I suppose, for a rep or a state senator, but Anyway, no, I mean, I do think we need to keep MCAS around, but it shouldn't be used as the sole deciding factor on whether or not someone graduates. And as Lynn pointed out, I was actually talking with Dr. Rabinovich about this, and he was saying that in 2 years it's going to be replaced by something else, right? I think that's the plan, and I forget the name of it. It's like PC something, but I'm not clear as whether or not it's just a better test, and that it still hinges on whether or not you pass it to graduate. But again, I mean, there's ways. I would just if I could wave a wand, I'd say let's let kids that just know their stuff, but just maybe don't do well on one test, let them graduate. But that's not up to me. But again, I do think it's important for the state to know how each schools are doing. So if they're not doing well, that with a standardized test, that you can address those problems as they arise.
Any statistician will tell you that the larger the cohort, the larger the group of people that you're studying, the more likely you are to come up with a valid conclusion. The notion that we can say to one individual that you're either worthy of graduating based on one test at one moment in time, or you're not worthy, is ludicrous on its face. This is an attempt by non-educators to respond to all this pressure to get better results. Now, do I believe in numbers and data? Absolutely. Do I think that if you look at an entire school district based on data, that you could draw some healthy conclusions, especially if it was over a number of years, say 4 or 5 years? Now you've got something worth talking about. But an individual student, it's shameful. It's abuse of students for the sake of the politicians and the legislators. So it's a great question. Are we going to get rid of it anytime soon? No. As a matter of fact, it's getting worse because the business community would like to take the same data type driven testing and use it to evaluate teachers. An individual teacher at any moment in time should not have their career messed up because they happen to have one class for 1 year that doesn't do quite as well as they were supposed to. But that's the direction we're going. Once again, it's abuse of educators by people who are desperate to get better results. That's why part of the job that I see as a school committee member is advocating at above the town level, and I've been trying to do that through the Massachusetts Association of School Committees and other areas, to prevent further abuse and the abuse getting worse. But it's tough. These commissioners of education are so tied up in these things, and the business community is so enamored with data that it's a real hard battle. The short answer is no.
Jack Cummings. First of all, I'd like to apologize deeply, having been a teacher and a principal for a number of years. I volunteer at my granddaughter's school at Minor Forest, and I always look at the volunteer list, and it's usually pretty slim. I've always viewed education as being a cooperative effort. And what I'd like to hear is what the school committee member and prospective members would like to do to encourage more participation by parents.
Ideas to encourage volunteers in the schools. Who starts? Who wants to start? Wait, Lana start? We know who starts.
Guess it's my turn. This year I'm functioning as chair, which we rotate. One of the things that I have asked my fellow school committee members to do along with myself is to get more deeply involved in the schools. So I have been attending quite a number, as my wife will tell by the number of times she doesn't see me in the evening, quite a number of school council meetings. And of course there are PTA meetings. I agree completely with the gentleman who said this is a cooperative effort. No matter how good the teacher is, if you have a parent that doesn't care, it's really tough. The opposite is true, but the truth is we have a lot of great teachers, but we have a lot of struggling parents. I was, as I told you, one of the luckiest people you'll meet, and that's because every time I got home from school, my mother was there. The truth is that with two working families and people struggling to keep roofs over their roofs on their houses and food on the table, it's really hard for kids to come home to a mother or a father. So getting parents involved is critically important. I sent out a note to parents, I'm sure most people aren't even aware of it, back in the first quarter, talking to them about the importance of graduating from high school. People may not realize it, but literally you're 3 times more likely to be unemployed if you haven't graduated from high school than if you graduated from college. 3 times more likely. So parents need to get involved. Anything we can do to get them involved. We take public participation very seriously, but there are vehicles, and I wish I knew better how to get to see parents more frequently. All I can tell you is that I have never ignored a parent. I have offered many times to have coffee with parents, and it's one of the most pleasurable things I do is to interact with parents.
Could I just ask for a clarification? Did you mean you want to see more volunteerism inside the school helping teachers, or just more involvement with their kids doing scholastic stuff?
My question was really about volunteering in the school, but your second point is well taken.
Okay.
Yeah.
Actually, no, it's a great question. It's one that we definitely need more of. My wife and I were discussing this recently, actually, and she put it the best way. She said, people show up to see their kids do things. They want to see their kids achieving and being active and doing things in the schools. I mean, you go to a PTA meeting and it's all about money and finances. So nobody's going to go to a PTA meeting when it's just that. But look at all the people that showed up at the Honor Society. I don't know if you said you weren't mine, but at Deacon's there was tons of parents to see their kids being inducted to the Honor Society. Go to any basketball game or football game, and there's tons of parents watching their kids achieve. I mean, that's what we need more of. But it takes, in some cases, it takes parent involvement. There's been discussion of creating a new council separate from the PTA to do just this, but it's going to involve parents, to get involved and maybe run a spelling bee or something like that. And that would, parents would love to see their kids doing a spelling bee. Rank it so that you've got kids aren't so that it's equal and stuff so that they're not all, you don't have kids that are like really good at spelling mixed with kids that aren't, and just make it fun for everybody. But that's the key. I mean, parents want to see their kids be active and enjoy more than just MCAS. I mean, there's got to be more to school than just MCAS. I won't go there. I think I'll just leave it at that.
Kids love when parents come into school. My husband and I have both on several occasions gone in and read to classrooms, and both of us have also volunteered for field trips in the past. And they love it. And, one of the things, and I would urge parents, you can take a 2-hour block out of the whole school year and go in and read a story to your kids' class. Watch all of their faces light up. Watch the teachers' faces light up, okay? They love it just as much, if not more, than the kids. And, in one of my recent experiences, I was there for 20 minutes to read them a story about Martin Luther King Day, and it ended up being over 45 minutes with them asking me all kinds of questions, not only about Martin Luther King, but my daughter had bragged about her mother running for school committee, so it became a question and answer session with them too. So they were enlightened and they were educated. You know, we talked about voting at the Deacon's school and how the kids, they're just aware, you know, that something big is going on in the course of their day in town by the voting. I've also seen parents come in and speak of their professions, which allows our kids to dream and to become knowledgeable about all the possible different avenues that they could go in. Once again, I really want to encourage parents to try to do something, make an appearance somehow that year. Some parents, your appearance might be at a choral concert, and that's all you can do. But at least you're there and you're seen. And I think the final best way for that is to give them all money trees. Thank you.
With questions for the school committee candidates. Okay. Steve, thank you. Thank you, guys.
So I was under the understanding that we were allowed a 2-minute closing?
If you would like.
Yes,
if
I
all
would
three
like.
candidates would like a 2-minute closing, they're groaning out here, however.
Okay, well, I know that your response will be much different on voting day. Thank you.
All right, we're going to take a 10-minute break. There are refreshments in the back, and then we start the selectmen's meeting minutes thing.